What's up, YouTube? Hope everybody's been enjoying their week and enjoying their weekend. So this video, I'm going to talk about Palantir, and we're going to talk about the valuation. We're going to go through an annual review of what it's been like to be a shareholder of Palantir, my experience, my thoughts on the company, and in going back in time when I was building a position with Palantir, what I've noticed and so forth. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. Palantir is currently trading at $20.60. We'll go. Let's pull up a old historical chart here on Yahoo Finance, and as you can see, the stock came out around 2020. And there was a little hype phase in 2021 with stocks, and it was just a great time for IPOs to go in, and then so forth. And then the market did have a bunch of turbulence, and there was a huge sell-off in between, like 2020, or from now between 2020 and 2024. Like the 2022 to 2020 going into 2023, a lot of sell-off happening. But 2021, there was a lot of euphoria and so forth. Let's pull up my buy order history. This is my whole position. I'm going to full screen this because I want to tell a story off it. Let's see here. Just bear with me. Okay. So as you can see, in 2022, April 22nd, I started buying Palantir. And all the way to 2023, April 24th, from April of 2022 to April of 2023, almost approximately a year, I've been building my Palantir position. All right. Now, we look at the company now on Seeking Alpha, and we see that it's profitable. We have a nice gross margin. We have positive EBIT, EBITDA, net income, leverage, free cash flow. All these profitable in the positive margin metrics. When I started buying Palantir, no, this was not a profitable company, okay? Quite the contrary. They were burning cash. They had a net cash balance, mind you. I mean, they did not have as much cash as they do now, okay, I'll admit. But they did have a real good balance sheet. If I recall, they had a little bit over $1 billion in cash, or a little under $1 billion in cash. It was net cash, and there's no debt. I think it was like zero right there on the total debt portion. Their actual gross margin was around 83 to 84%, if I recall, when I started investing in them. And that's one of the prerequisite things that I look for. Net cash, huge gross margin. That's one of my criteria. And it's not a complete slam dunk. I know for sure this is going to be a very profitable company, but whenever you see a high gross margin, there's an indication there that there's room there for the company to be profitable. And this is a SaaS tech SaaS company with that high gross margin. So I know these tech SaaS companies have really high potential to command very high multiples because of that business model and how things work. But back in 2021 or 2022, they were not doing $2 billion in revenues. We'll go to the quarterly. I mean, it was. We'll go to the earnings, and this is what happened. All right, if you look at the earnings history, you see they used to be doing in 2021, 2022-ish Q1, they were doing over 30% revenue growth year over year. Okay, and their revenue started declining in 2022, and that was a horrible time to start showing. They had a high valuation with revenue decline year over year and sequential declines. And there was and you'll hear Palantir investors talk about it, how Karp during one of the earnings call banged on the table because he was so frustrated that the market was not respecting, that, I mean, they were not taking his word for it, and the revenues were declining, and there was problem with sales that they have not yet, how do you say, at that point they did not acknowledge there was a problem in the sales just yet, and they did not hire a sales team. So I mean, that was a while ago. Okay, I mean, not the time to start showing declining revenue growth. And then right around that time, that's why you saw this huge drop here. And I was listening to conference calls before the drop happened, and when it started dropping, that's when I started to get involved with Palantir. Um, I started buying this thing in April, right around this area. Let me see here. We'll go here. Maybe this is a better. Okay, so right around here, we saw this drop. I started averaging in, and I spent this whole year just buying it when nobody believed in it, when this company's stock was down in the rut, and nobody believed in management. The street was so disrespectful towards it. I believed in the company. I believed in the vision. Um, I'll admit I'm a capitalist and Karp is a socialist, but beliefs aside, it's business, okay? So I'm okay with that, all right? But and I'll admit I do have some background. I am familiar with Palantir. I hold a top secret clearance. Enough said. So I mean, that's all I can talk about there. But yeah, Palantir, I mean, I believed in the company, and this is a part of being an investor, right? I mean, I think that investing when nobody, investing when nobody believes in the business model, but you see the vision and you believe in it, and you put your capital to work to reflect those beliefs, you're going to be rewarded. All right. It's like the old saying, if you had, let's say you had two friends, and then let's say that you lost everything you had, and one of your friends was still your friend, and he or she had your back when you were down in the rut, and they helped you out, all right? And they believed in you when nobody did, okay? And the other friend, if you lost everything, the other friend just wasn't your friend no more. You find out who your friends are real quick, right? Same idea with investing, and one of my experiences with being a shareholder of Palantir is Karp. His main focus for his main shareholders he's concerned about are the ones that work in the company receiving stock-based comp. All right, and yes, I understand that the stock is important to go up so that that talent can stay and remain, as an incentive to see the growth and so forth. Um, but at the end of the day, if I hold the shares and they're successful, you know, my stock will go up. Um, Going back to the position, I mean, there's been times where the shares were about 230% gains, and now they're at 169% gains. This will probably go back up to 200%. 23. This thing has been trading and fluctuating within I mean, with this range, we're starting to break down. There is a gap here, though. There is a gap right here that's putting up a lot of resistance here, a lot of support. So there's a possibility we may not break this gap down under 19, but there is a possibility that we do. All right. This thing is trading pretty high. There have been a few. There have been a few earnings that have built up more of the valuation. The valuation's been catching up for a few quarters or so forth, but we're still trading at a high valuation. Um, I want to talk in the next segment. I want to talk about how much do I think Palantir is worth? What would I buy it at? And what would I do if I did not have a position in Palantir and I was interested in getting into this company? Okay. All right. So we'll get straight to one of these points. What would I be buying Palantir at if I didn't have a position in the company? All right. Well, typically when I buy a position or when I get into a position, I do a starter position. I maybe buy a couple $100 worth of it. All right, a couple $100 worth of whatever stock. And then when there's a huge hit to the stock, I start coming in more and more aggressive. All right. So at these levels, I might, and this is what I would do. This is not financial advice. If I didn't have a position in Palantir and I wanted to get in right around this level, I'd buy maybe a couple $100 worth of the stock. I would wait with the expectation. I mean, people will say dollar cost average in, so it doesn't matter. I wouldn't do that. I'd buy a couple $100 worth of the stock, and whatever money I have set aside, I would set aside a certain amount every month, dedicated towards going into Palantir. But I wouldn't buy the stock yet. All right. So if you're putting $500 a month in your brokerage, I would set aside a certain amount, dedicate that towards Palantir for when it's time to buy the dip. Maybe that's 200, 250, $300 out of that 500. I don't know. You have to make that decision. I mean, it's not financial advice, but it's what I would do. Me, I'm feeling my portfolio at $2,000 a month. So maybe I put aside 1,000 a month for Palantir, and when it dips, I'm coming in. And if it dips harder, I'm going to start buying heavy. I'd buy a couple $100 right around this $20 level. And then when we start dipping down into the $14, $15 range, 16, $14 to $16, this new resistance or this past resistance right here that has formed support, I'd be buying all up in there when we go back down. All right. There's a possibility that doesn't happen. All right. But I would have to reassess where Palantir is in the valuation. Has the valuation caught up? All right. Because their past earnings, they've pretty much showed that they pulled out the rule of 40. All right. A lot of investors, that means different things to some investors. To me, the rule of 40 is your revenue growth and your EBITDA margin should be equal to 40. That's the rule of 40 to me. All right. And that's how I interpret it, you know. Now, others would interpret other ways. That's on them. But that's my whole take on it. I'm happy with the performance in Palantir. I'm a long-term investor. If you haven't noticed, I'm going to hold this thing for several years. If you're dollar cost averaging in this thing and you're a long-term investor and you plan on holding this thing 5 to 10 years or whatever, I think you're going to be happy with the results. I don't know if you're going to get a 3x in another year. I don't know about all that. I got in this thing when it was unprofitable and like nobody believed in this thing. There were a few people that did, and I'm one of them. I was a believer, and I'm still a believer now, and I'll be a believer throughout. But yeah, that's my whole take. I hope you all enjoyed this video and a different perspective on just different angles about being a shareholder. And hope you all have a good rest of y'all's weekend.